This is the Reflector Reflections podcast. My name is Annie. Join me as we journey around the world, talking with fellow human design reflectors as they experiment and navigate their unique design. Today's beautiful conversation is with Ileana, a 4/6 reflector who comes from a long ancestral lineage of Curanderas from the Yucatán peninsula, as well as Taino Curanderas from the island of Puerto Rico. And I apologize profusely if I have said any of this incorrectly. Ileana is a very passionate astrologer, tarot reader at Matriarch Astrology, and also a talented artist making candles and magic tools via her shop, the Blackcat Parlour. You are such a multi-talented individual. Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here and just sharing your gifts and stories with the world. As we do, let's talk human design. How did human design find you, or how did you find human design?
I went to a spiritual, it's kind of like one of those holistic festivals that they have. And I had my aura taken, like a picture. And one of the women were like, "Oh, wow, your aura is so like, you've got a lot of indigo. What's your human design?" And I was like, I don't know what that is. She was like, "I bet, like, I'm so interested in what yours is." And she pulled it up for me really quickly, and it came out as a projector at that time. Um, I had the way incorrect birth time. My mother had told me I was born at 7 at night, and then I come to find out I was born at 12 in the afternoon, so it's 7 hours off. So I read a little bit on projector, and I was like, like this is not really like making sense that much. So I kind of put it on the side until I had found out years later my actual birth time by getting the certificate. And I was like, one of my friends actually reminded me. She was like, "Oh yeah, what's your human design?" And I was like, "Yeah, like it was projector, I remember, but I haven't updated it. My time changed, so it might be different." So I quickly went on and looked, and it came out as a reflector. And I read a little bit really quickly on my phone, and I was like, this makes so much more sense than the projector one that I was reading.
Yeah.
So it all started, I guess, to start at a festival, a holistic healing festival that I went to.
What a beautiful place to start that journey.
Yes.
I really feel you on that. I was told mine came up as a projector as well, and it's sort of mentioned. I didn't identify with that much at all.
Mm.
So how did you go? Like, I'm very curious. How did you go about adjusting your birth time?
I had to get what's called a long form birth certificate. So that is the one that the hospital sends to you, and you have to go through the state. And then you put in your information, and then they send you your birth certificate, like with the birth weight and birth time. And sometimes it doesn't work. It depends on the state. But luckily, I was born in Florida, so they did have it, and then they sent it to me within like 2 weeks. So you pay like $13, and then they send it to you. Because my mom was going off of guessing. So I was like, I need this specific time. I'm an astrologer. Like, I have to have my time. So it really made sense in my astrology, but then it also made sense in human design.
Yeah. And I guess as an astrologer, you've been in this space of understanding where your houses are, where your placements are.
Mhm.
So adding on human design, can you share with us how that felt? Like, what happened during this process of finding out, hey, I'm a reflector?
Are
Mm.
you saying like what's the comparisons?
How did you feel? Like, how was it for you when this happened? Like, you sort of said, oh, this makes more sense. How did
Right.
that feel in your body, like to know that there's something out there other than astrology that's pulling in this awareness around I am the 1%. I
Mhm.
have no definition in my chart. What does this mean? How does that feel?
It felt very freeing because before I knew it, I felt so guilty because I'm a mother of three. And I felt always the need that I have to go, like I have to go away somewhere. I have to go outside. I have to be away from all of you. Like even my husband, I was like, I just need to be alone. I didn't know why, but I always felt like I was exhausted. Like you guys are just too much. And I really just need to like, I would go on drives just to like 10-minute drives or 15-minute drives just to get my energy out, like away. Now I know why I needed that. And that's when it made so much sense to me, like the big aha, because astrology wasn't telling me this specific thing that I was constantly feeling daily. And, each day I kind of felt like a different person. Like I can be so energetic one day, and then the next day I'm like depleted. And I'm just like, oh, well, my drive is gone. And I'm such a Capricorn. I'm like, why am I not feeling all this strong, driven energy? And that really helps it make sense so much more when it comes to how I feel daily, and then also the need to just go away to myself, just to decompress everything that is around me. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And when you found this, did you look back through your past? As we always do, we kind of like journey back because we have to. It's a part of accepting who we are. We need to, some people call it shadow work, some people call it whatever they do, but just looking back throughout your whole life and seeing where this reflectorism, for lack of better words, has played out. Have you taken that big deep dive?
You mean like childhood and like
Yeah.
growing? Oh yeah. It really, I think it is the most profound thing that I've come to understand more. Because as a child, I was very, all the energy was isolated towards me. So I had three sisters, and I was the one who got the worst out of everyone. And I never really could understand that from both parents. I had a stepdad and a mom, and she only treated me out of my sisters the worst. She treated one of my sisters very great, like a princess. Then the other one was kind of like, like she didn't challenge her much. But me, it was like the hammer, like really hard on me. All the negativity, all the anger, all the dark things just spilled on me. And then my stepdad also was like the same way. Not that way with my sister, not that way with my other sister. So it was like I was like the punching bag as a child, the one that got everything. And that the reflector side of that really helped me understand. I was like, I even like questioned myself. I was like, did I like bring out these people's, inner things that they maybe tried to hide? Does it like vomit on me? Like that was one of my first thoughts when I looked back at childhood. I was like, I was reflecting back her and him. And in school, it was the same thing, bullying and stuff like that, and people not wanting to be my friend. And I just couldn't understand why. I was like, why is it always like that? I always have to struggle. Like nobody wants to be my friend. Home sucks. School sucks. Middle school is really bad also. So it helped me really understand a lot deeper, at least on another perspective of my childhood and how
Yeah.
that was. So yeah, I don't know if I should go any deeper on that, but
So
yeah.
let's talk about the family that that you were raised in, I suppose, or and that you have, if we may. Like, you're the token reflector, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Do you know your sisters and your parents, step parents' design?
My stepdad, no. I know my mother is a manifesting generator. And then one of my sisters is a generator. And then the other one, I think, is also a manifesting generator.
Mm.
So it was all this energy.
Yeah.
The only one I didn't know again is my stepdad. So I looked even at like my aunt and to see if I could find any other reflector. But, there's only as far as I can go because not everybody has their time. But
Mm.
so far that I've looked at, I'm the only reflector.
Yeah. And there is that beautiful tool that we have, or it's a document where we know the time periods over the
Mhm.
last X amount of years. So it's kind of easy we can kind of rule those out. If they're not born on this date or within this time frame of certain years, we can rule it out. That has helped us a lot.
Oh, okay.
I'll share that with you later. So
Yes,
you know
please.
that if they're even born in a certain year, there's no reflectors. There might be reflectors born only in April of one year, and it might only be for 2 days. So that's why we're only the 1%, is because there's how it all works in the transits. It's just we're not forming those channels to create
Right.
the centers. But anyway, I digress. So your current relationship right now, can you share with us what your family dynamic is?
Yes, my husband is a projector, and my daughter is a projector as well. And then I have two smaller boys, and they are a generator and then manifesting generator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So that's our household dynamic. And
How
then I'm
was
the
that
reflector.
how obviously coming from, let's just step back. So coming from your past, obviously it's been quite stressful, quite alienating, and to meet your current partner, your husband who's a projector, that energy must feel completely different.
Yes. Yes. His energy is a lot more light than what I've dealt with so far. And I even tell him, I'm like, you're the only guy that I've met ever that's been like this. And it's almost a bit in the beginning, I felt afraid because I was like, this is foreign to me. And like, what if it doesn't work? Like, this is scary. But I trusted my intuition. And so far, like, we work great. We work really good together, and we kind of know each other's energies. Like, we know it intuitively, we can feel each other. And I really love that. I always tell him, I'm like, I know when you're coming home. Like, I can feel when you get home.
Yeah,
He's like, there's no way. I'm like, I do every time.
I love that for you. Did you always have that ability to have that deeper knowing as a young child, or was it kind of just the self-doubt took over? Because I find that a lot of us, we're very intuitive. We have this, we know. Was it always with you? Spirit,
Yes,
you know.
yes, yes. I mean, even with my stepdad and, my mom, I could feel them on a, they didn't have to say anything to me. I just felt them so deeply. And not just them, but like I would feel awkward around certain people, and I couldn't understand why. Even as an adult, I still do. Just a random stranger that I'm standing by at the store, like I just get this bad feeling, and I'm like, I get almost like anxiety. I'm just like, I have to go.
Yeah.
um, and growing up, I did go through a lot of things where I was either bringing it out, or it's hard because when you're a kid, you can't really escape it. You can't escape all this, especially when it's so close in the home. Um, but I could feel definitely intentions, because I was, as a child, did experience sexual abuse. So before that would occur, I would feel like this, like just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand why. And, this is something that I had to realize now and go back and remember. And I do really have a good memory when I think
Mm,
about it. I'm like, I remember so much. And I remember like just feeling like even my first memories of when that occurred, I don't remember what happened, but I remember feeling like
yeah.
something's really wrong. Something is going to happen that's really wrong. And then once, like the day after or something, I remember feeling like wrong, like something's very off.
Yeah.
And I always just kind of knew that feeling even before anything would happen. So I guess it was kind of like premonition.
Mm,
Um, but it happened so often that I can't recall every single time.
yeah, of course. And yeah, thank you for sharing
Right.
that. My heart kind of really wants to reach through and give you a big hug. Wow.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no. It's like a beautiful compassion. It's just like I feel that,
Right.
I
Yeah,
really feel that,
exactly.
where it's just like the openness of us, we're taken for granted. And so I just, yeah, it's not a pity, it's just a compassion of just going, I really feel that. Like it's not fair.
Right.
Um, but at the same time, it's like like I could be right out of line here by saying this, but it's just like There's something about us, and they talk about this Teflon aura, which I dislike immensely. I hate that. But there is something about us, what you were just saying, it's like we take it in and sometimes it holds in there and it's awful. But there's also this buffer part. Have you found that there's this strength in you that has allowed you to get through this easier
Yeah.
than maybe, not to compare, but easier than somebody else?
Well, I mean, I always make not a joke, but I always say like I should not be where I am. I mean, I
Mm,
am where I am and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. But I'm like, this could have gone so much differently for me because everything that I had growing up, I should be like in a different situation. Because as we know, people who go through so much trauma end up going, not all the time, but a lot of the time, end up going and making decisions that just kind of spiral them and then they can never get off that spiral.
yeah.
So I'm so thankful that I didn't, and I feel like that's my strength, is
Yeah.
that I didn't let any of it, like all of the everything that was like dumped on, um kind of I used it as to step up, like stepping stones, like,
Mm,
all right, I'm here, but I'm gonna use a step up and step up and step up. And I think that's my strength, of like letting it slide off. That doesn't mean that I didn't hold it in.
mm,
And I did have to do releasing on my own as an adult once I became aware that I had held in a lot, but I didn't stay there. And
yeah.
I think that's the strength, is not staying there, and, being able to know that I'm so strong that I can go over this and become a better person and even use this to help other people.
Mm. Did you find during that, because we're so feeling that our mind gets in the way, that when you can kind of disengage from the mental anguish of life, of the conditioned beings that we are by everybody around us pushing, pulling, us trying to fit in, did you find that when you let go of the mental, that you could actually then have a better healing journey?
I have help, or I had help in
Yeah.
doing that.
I want to
But
hear
yes,
about this. Talk
yes,
to
I
me.
did have help. Well, I've worked with psychedelic medicines,
Yeah.
and that has really helped me. And it helped bring it to the forefront, and it's like almost, it was like a purging. And yeah, it was definitely where you have to stop, thinking that, or it's something that's in the back that kind of comes forward and says, hey, we haven't forgiven, we haven't released, and we've been storing this in. And yeah, usually when you work with psychedelic medicines, it brings you to that, but it also takes you out of your mental state. It takes you out of that thinking, and your brain is completely on a different wavelength at that time, and you're able to like just observe it and
Yeah.
see it. And then also, I'm very spiritual, so I called my guides, because there's a point where you're like, help.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much. And as soon as I did that, it was like everything became white around me, and all this healing just poured in, and I could feel it. And I was like, oh my God, yes, like unconditional love. And you're just like, I didn't even know I was holding this. And you're like, there's no reason to,
Mm.
there's no reason to have this here. And I'm so glad that it's brought up, because obviously it was stored there and it was causing so much unconscious things within me, you know. So I definitely did have help in many ways. And there's places where you can go where you can, sit. Like, it's, for instance, like with ayahuasca, there's a place here where you can sit legally and be with ayahuasca. And in those journeys, it usually brings whatever you've been storing for
Yeah.
you to, face, but then also see the other person's perspective, probably, and see their pain as well.
Mm. How does that feel for you to see somebody else's pain, see they're hurting, know that they've done this to you, and be told by the world, to be love and light, I've got to forgive and forget, or not forgive and forget, but to forgive? Like, how does that truly feel for you when you can see past so much of that bullshit? Um, yeah, bit of a hard one
Well,
there, but how does that feel? How does that actually really feel for you?
it felt really like to me personally, it felt like also freeing because I was chained up, especially towards my mother. I was like in these such an anger, like why couldn't you give me this, and why couldn't you love me, and why couldn't you hug me, why couldn't you say I love you, why were you so abusive? And one of my journeys, I was placed in her shoes, so I was no longer myself, I was her. And I experienced the death of my sister. So we had another sister who died when I was 1, and she was a 4-year-old. So it was a very sudden accident. And that's where my mother's neglect started with me, because I was put in her shoes, of course, and I felt probably a fraction of what she felt. But I felt her become like, it's like her mental state became scrambled. And I understood like, oh, she's been like scrambled for a long time in a psychological way. So it's like she stayed in that scrambled state, and she hasn't been able to, deal with that. And however, we don't know how to deal with something like that. But of course, I mean, my view in that was to see her and understand at least somewhat of why she was, the way she was. Because I saw myself as a baby crying in the crib, and she was just numb on the bed. These experiences, they're very visual. They don't make sense in the normal world, but when you're in them, you can see it, you can feel it. It's a whole different state. So I saw how she couldn't tend me because she was in this sorrow, of course, understandably. And then, as the years went on, she wasn't in that same type of, in bed sorrow, but her mind stayed there.
Yeah.
So I was able to see that and understand like she went through so much pain. And I also saw, for some reason, a glimpse of my grandmother leaving her, like walking away from her, and how she felt neglected by her. And I was like, this is a cycle. I can see this cycle here. And I need to be able to stop this, stop this cycle from repeating itself. So that's what helped me, understand her and then also forgive her. And even though we don't have a relationship because she doesn't accept the way I am, she's religious, very religious.
Yeah.
So all that I am is opposing her views. So I've learned I don't need to force a relationship. And that's what I used to try to do, was force a relationship with her. Like, please, like, just understand me and love me. And I'm not a bad person. And, it allowed me to forgive her, but then also know my boundaries and know that I don't need to, maybe we don't, we don't have a relationship in this lifetime. Maybe, we will in spirit, because she's older. If that does happen, I know that in spirit that she'll be her true form, and then she'll be able to see me for me. But I need to be okay with that might not happen while she's here with me, and being okay with that. So it helped me be okay, but also understand where she came from and forgive her in a sense. Yes, I forgive you, but I'm not going to hold this anger that I was holding. I was holding so much anger, and it
Yes.
helped me. I think that was the key, is just letting go of the anger part. And that doesn't mean that I need to be behind you trying to get your approval or your love, and being okay with that.
I am really inspired by you in sharing that, because it is so true. Like, we can get caught in this story of ours, um, our life, our journey to date, whatever has happened to us through the hardships. And it's that anger or that disappointment or that bitterness that's just in our body. But as you say, you were gifted this, plant medicine journeys,
Right.
as have I, where it's just you are literally placed sometimes in somebody else's shoes. And that kind of takes away the story that we're telling ourselves over and over and over again, this little mind loop that we get in that festers. It's just like I always have seen it like this dark energy that's just feeding my anger or feeding my resentment. And when I can kind of bypass that, which is the beautiful gift of the plants, we can see with a bigger story, and kind of let it go a little bit.
Yes. Little by little with each journey. I
Yeah.
don't think that sitting once is gonna get
No.
everything, because every time I've sat, it's always something different. It was mom, then it was the sexual abuse. I also was confronted with that and, healed in that. Um, and then, other, situations that I went through as a very young little child that I also was, that came forward to me. And I had no idea that I was still holding on to that, you know, um, in my womb space, and just holding on to so much pain. And that's the beauty of it, the medicines, is that it brings everything for you to purge out. And then, it does take a while. It's not a one journey thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you about, you were saying there before that your first child was a projector, so not as much of that engine energy, but then your subsequent children have been the generator and the manifesting generator. How has that motherhood journey been for you in navigating, I guess, your past, your present, and your future with these additional little energies around you? Would you like to share a little bit of that?
Right. With her, it was just me and her for about 7 years. So I felt kind of like comfortable too. Like I didn't have an over amount of energy, but I was kind of like, I was like, I'm writing okay. Yeah, it's good. I didn't know about human design when I had her, or even in the 7 years that it was just me and her. So, but when I look back now, I feel like we kind of did our own thing, and our energy together was actually pretty good. It's only when I had my kids that it became scrambled, or the energy, I became kind of more like energetic, more like I was like super mom doing a million things. Um, and I think now I've gotten to the point where I've kind of crashed. And I read that in my book, or one of the books that I have on the human design reflector, this one here.
Oh, yeah, Amber's. Yes.
Wrong. Yes.
Yeah.
One of the examples she gave is that she was like, I was in college and I had all this energy because I was, getting it from everybody. And then she just kind of crashed, I guess, in her later 30s. And I was like, has that happened to me? Because I feel like since last year, my energy is just like really, even with my kids, it's still like plateau almost. And when they were first born, I was just, I even thought back, I was like, I don't know how I did it. Juggling, they were like a year and a half apart. So
Yeah.
juggling everything, getting them to go play and taking care of both of them at home. And it was so much. I was like, how did I, like, right now, me now, I wouldn't have the energy. I would
Yeah.
just literally feel like I had to give up. So they definitely boosted me at that time, but now I'm trying to like work more with my energy.
Yeah.
So I'm still figuring it out even now. It's like I'm not feeling it today, and I'm just not going to do it. And
I
letting
really
go
feel
of
you there.
letting go of the almost like I feel guilty that I don't have that energy because I'm so driven, and I'm like, oh my god, like I have to do it, I have to do it. But I'm just like, I'm so tired, and even though I have my kids, I'm still just like, I can't anymore. I feel like I'm on low energy, or low
Yeah.
gas. So yeah, I think I'm trying to figure out now when to listen and just rest the day that I need to rest, and not push so much as
Yeah.
I was pushing before. I mean, this whole time been pushing.
It's so hard. And I feel you there. My children, my younger two children were 15 months apart too. And I often joke, I felt like I spent the first year in the fetal position because it was just like, what? Um, no sleep and all that kind of stuff that comes with the new motherhood journey. It just literally takes us out of it, out of us. So I feel you there. It's like you've got to collect yourself. And I also just want to honor you that you said earlier in our chat about, I just need to be away. That is me. Absolutely to a T. I am exactly the same. It's just like no matter how loving or supportive I feel, it's just like sometimes I need to say, you need to get out of my space. I need to just be with me. Um, because that's hard because you feel like you could be perceived as neglecting your kids. It's just like, but also teaching them what I've learned, also teaching them to go, this is just who I am. This is me. And when I come back, I love you. Like I'm right here. But sometimes I need to withdraw because that's who I am. Teaching them that has been the biggest lesson, and not feeling guilty about it.
Right. Yeah, I definitely felt in the beginning, especially. I was like, I feel so bad that I'm, and I couldn't understand, before human design, I couldn't understand why. I was like, I guess I'm just like not a good mom. Like, I was like, I just need to be alone. Like, I just need like time. And, especially when they're so small like that, you're just like, you probably can get like maybe 10 minutes or something. But I would dive into it. And I was so excited for nighttime because I was like, yes, I could be in my room and I could just or to go take a shower or just escape in any way I can. But now as an adult, like they know this is mommy's space, this is
Yeah.
mommy's area where she goes, and it's okay to come here and you can be here, but sometimes I need you guys to go and I just need to be in here for like, just give me 15 minutes.
Yep.
So they are starting school now. My last youngest one will be starting now in August, so I'm work from home, so I found like 2 years ago I was working and they were in a little school that I was paying for, and I was just like had so much more energy when they were gone and I felt bad about that. I was like, oh my god, I'm like the worst. But it was because I was able to go outside and just rest when I needed to. And then when they came to me, I was like full energy, like let's do a million things together.
Yeah.
I function a lot better like that.
Yeah. I'm the same.
Yeah.
Absolutely the same. And it's hard parenting from that
Yeah.
lens because society tells us differently. So we take that on board. Again, that's the conditioned, and that's the deconditioning process of being, I guess, parents, not just reflectors, but just parents, isn't it? Of just going, everything is okay here. Everything is fine. This is how we function.
Right. Yeah. I tried really hard for a long time. I thought that I was supposed to be like a stay-at-home mom and I was going to homeschool. And I tried that and I was like, yeah, I can't homeschool. Like I can't. Like I can, but my energy, like I just can't.
Yeah.
And then when I looked at human design, I was like, oh yeah, now I see why. Why but I did try it and I just couldn't understand why I was failing. I was like, I'm failing. I can't do it. Like I'm the worst, and I can't be the perfect stay-at-home mom that homeschools. And that's great, the women that can. But I
Yeah.
was like, I just don't feel like I'm trying to fit into something that I'm not fitting into.
Yeah.
And I had to human design help me at least release that guilt feeling, because I really did try.
Did you go, because you're a 4/6 profile, and you don't strike me as, I guess, a lot of, and I mean all due respect here, 4/6s are generally very social. The ones that I've met, they're very out there. You don't strike me as that. Like you're obviously very social in that, but you don't strike me as somebody who goes out there and kind of like builds community. How does that profile, how does your 4/6 profile work for you?
I've questioned that too. When I saw it, I was like, I have no friends. I think it's just from childhood, to be honest, because I was bullied. And every time I tried as a child to make friends, they would make it, this is my experience at least. For some reason, I kept having this repeating theme of be my friend. And then the children would be like, okay, we'll be your friend, but you have to do this. And it was cruel things. Like one of these girls were like, yeah, you could be our friend, but in order to be in our group, you have to eat dog food. And she was like, yeah, we'll bring you a plate and you have to eat. I was like 9. She was like, you have to eat dog food. If not, you're not gonna be able to be friends with us. And I was like, well, I don't want to eat dog food. And she was like, well, you can't be friends with us. And I remember just walking home so sad because I just wanted to be like, I just wanted to come and play. And I experienced that at school too. Like everybody, we were constantly moving. So every time I was always the new kid, and everybody already had formed their little cliques. So I was like, kind of like trying to find which clique I can go into. And then it was always like a pushback. And I just never could understand. I'm like, why does, nobody wants to be my friend? They always receive me as like, no, I don't want to be your friend. Like that's the energy I got, was like
Mm.
this. So I guess I just kind of, as an adult, stopped trying to. I've seen making friends as like this. So then I just stopped trying to. I didn't even try as an adult to go out and make friends, because I'm like, I'm only gonna get this type of energy. So it's very lonely. I mean, I do have a couple friends, but it's not the friendships that I'm wanting. I want like that deep, like a best friend. I've always wanted a best friend. And I think that's one of the hardest things that I've had to deal with is not having friends.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, because it's just so, I mean, there's a lot of us, especially when we've had that, it's just like we're aliens in a way. And you're not alone in feeling that. Absolutely. You're not alone. Um, and I can just sympathize with with your childhood. It's just like I desperately wanted friends.
Right.
And I often go back and I go, did I try too hard? And I'm like, I just felt like I was me. But because I guess when you've got somebody, I'm a fifth line. So I've always kind of now felt that it's just people want to see the greatest in themselves when they look at me. And then if I don't live up to that, they're just like, nah. My son is a 4/6, and I had a chat with Ellie. Ellie is also a 4/6 reflector a few months ago. And I watch him, he's only 6. And I watch him he's got this massive heart. He's a manifesting generator. And he's out there all the time trying to make friends. And he's the sweetest, kindest little boy, but he gets pushed back a lot. And I was talking to her about that, and I'm just like, breaks my heart, breaks my heart. But it's just like, I can't, there's only so much we can do. Um, but I think he's starting to slowly find his people. So I feel you there. It's just like the rebuff of not being able to be us or be seen as being us. It's
Right. Yeah.
fucking painful.
Well, it's also like when you do make a friend, um you might reflect something back that they don't like, and then it's an instant rejection or it's an instant closed door. And then that's when my instinct is to shut down or to go back into that, well, I'm just not going to keep coming out, because I don't want to beg. And that's kind of the situation I felt like I've always been in, like, please be my friend. Like, and I'm like, I don't want to beg anymore. I don't want
Yeah.
to beg people to be my friends. And if I did something to upset you, of course I'm gonna, if I feel like I was wrong, I'm gonna apologize. But I don't want to feel like I have to beg for you to be my friend, because then it's like that cycle again. And I'm like, I'm not gonna do that anymore.
Yeah.
So, I go out into the community. I've done cacao ceremonies with
Yeah.
my drum, and I've done it in a group of women, and it's great.
Yeah.
But I'm learning, or I'm trying to learn how can I connect more with these women on a more personal level. And that's where I'm at right now, is trying to go out and um, make more connections. I'm starting in groups, but I'd like to narrow down, and I do eventually know that I'm going to find my people.
Yeah.
Pluto's going into my 11th house of literally friends. It's
Yeah.
going to be going to Aquarius. So I'm like, oh yeah, yes, okay, that can bring in powerful friends, or it can bring in like the friends that you need, the loyal, because Pluto Scorpio energy, that's loyal. And I'm not looking for quantity. I'm looking for quality,
Yeah.
and even if it's just 1, 2, or 3, or even 1, I'm fine with that. I'm gonna have faith that I will, meet the people, and whoever is meant to stay will,
Yeah.
accept me for me, and not have me having to, beg them
Yeah. And
to.
see you
Right. Yes.
and see you for who you are. I want to ask you a question about circles,
Mhm.
because I think you and I are and there might be other people who could listen to this. When I attend other people's circles, I haven't attended very many where I feel very comfortable or seen or held. Um, However, when I hold my own circles, however they may show up, I love it because it's just like I'm directing or I'm guiding that experience, and we can hold this space, for lack of better words, very well. How does that feel for you, from you facilitating a circle to you being in a circle? Have you noticed the difference?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm definitely more in the background. That's my first reaction is I observe mainly. I just look at everybody and everybody speaks and I just kind of listen. And when I feel safe to speak, I'll speak. So when I am, in circle, I do kind of feel the same way, like you said, like you're just not really seen. And it's not like you're pushing yourself either.
Yeah.
But when I'm facilitating, I'm usually with my drum and I feel so much more invigorated. And it's not because it's like, hey, look at me. It's more like I'm in this zone. And especially when I'm drumming, I get it. Like I can feel the vibration of the drum. It's so strong that it helps me get out of my head almost in a sense. And I'm able to, my brain just kind of goes like this and just relaxes. And then I noticed that, even people are like, oh my God, when you came behind me, like I could feel that. I could feel the drum and I could feel you. And it's a lot more enjoyable that way
Yeah.
because I feel good that I'm also bringing that to, to the circle.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more enjoyable, at least for me.
Because you're bringing you to the circle. And I think that's what I found is just like when we attend other circles, unless they kind of really understand us, we can't really be us. But when you're facilitating, and as you were just saying, then when you kind of like, like that frequency sets in with the drum and you are with the drum, everybody else feels that. And I think that's just the best gift. I'm like, didn't realize I was going to say that in words then, but I was just like, that's how it feels for me. And I can feel that for you too. And I'm just like, oh my God, you need to do more of this. This is who you are.
Right.
This is you. Do more circles.
Yeah.
That's your
I've
thing.
been practicing the flute as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, the native flute and playing it. And as soon as I get some songs down, I want to also incorporate that and just bring you sound. I have a thing with sound. I have bowls. I have the flute and the drum and rattles. And I like bringing that in because it helps me get into that space, out of my head and into the frequencies, as I'd say.
Yeah. And sharing that beautiful gift of your love and healing energy just ripples out through all of the instruments that you're playing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. You were saying, I just want to kind of like, I know we've been going for a while, get into the work that you do, I suppose. Like, how did you get into astrology? How did that happen for you?
I grew up seeing astrology on the TV. So my mother is from Puerto Rico. So we would see this Hispanic Puerto Rican astrologer that would come on the TV. And he's passed now, but his name was Walter Mercado. And he would do the zodiac horoscope every week. And everybody in the family would like make it a big deal. Like, oh, he's on. Everybody stop talking. And everybody would sit and wait for their sign. I remember asking, I was like, well, what's mine? And my grandma was like, you're a Capricorn. And I was like, okay, which one is that one? And she was like, it's the one that that he shows. And it was like a goat. And my first reaction was like, oh, that's boring. Like, I don't want to be a goat. Like, I want to be the lion or something interesting like the scorpion. I felt so like off-putted because I didn't want to be a goat. I was like, how boring. I'm a farm animal. Like this is ridiculous. But I remember just listening just to see. I was like, okay, yeah, how's my week gonna be? And I'm like 10. So obviously he was talking to adults and I should have been listening for my rising, but nobody knew at the time. I kind of had that in the back of my head. So when as a teenager, I would see the horoscope on the magazines and I was like, oh yeah, I'm a Capricorn. Like, let me read and I would read about the Capricorn energy. And I was like, yeah, like that is kind of, that's how I am. Like, I like things to work well and I like to do things right and, be on time. So, it kind of just became more of a thing where I started, I just came up on it on YouTube mainly, like in my late 20s. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, like a week for Capricorn, like let me check it. So that's where I kind of became normal. Like I would check almost like every week and I would listen to it. And I wanted to know more. And you know how it goes. You just kind of learn like there's moon and there's rising. And you're like, what? And you dive into that. And then you're like, oh my God, yeah, my moon and my rising. And you're just dive into the world. It's like I went head into like, what is all this? But I really did get deep when I had my son my first son, he's the middle child. And I was walking through a bookstore and I saw this book called Mom Astrology. And I was like, oh yeah, like this is for moms and like how to parent your child with astrology based on his signs. So I was like, oh, I'm buying this book because I wanted to be like super mom. I had came into my spiritual journey when he was born. So I was really into like being a whole different person. So that's really where it started, is when I had him, because I delved so deep in there.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. Always something initiates us, doesn't it?
Right. Just walking through a bookstore.
And the birth of your child, it just is initiate, and it's a generator at that too. It's just like, boom, there we go. We're gonna have to deal with
Yeah.
this.
Well, he's the manifesting generator.
Oh,
But
oh,
yes, yes, he brought it in. As soon as I was pregnant with him, it was like everything trickled in so fast during the pregnancy. So
yeah.
I am like, oh, thank you.
And I love that because a part of your work is very much dealing, well, not dealing, that's the wrong words, but a part of your work is very much about providing those services for families. I see, you do kids charts and family charts as well.
Yes. Yeah, I took the course with Cornelia Henson. And then I took a separate also astrology with parenting. So looking at children's charts, because I really found so much help when looking at my own son's charts and my daughter's charts. And I was like, whoa, there's so much here that I wish I knew when I had my daughter. I wish I knew all of this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, but I know now. So let's work on this now. And it gives you a whole different perspective, because then you're not just confused as to why is this one this way and why is this one that way. They're so different. Like, what do I do? And this is to help you see, why and how you can approach it in a way that can, encourage it. And also you can see something that may not be so helpful, and then you can help them, maneuver that.
Yeah.
That's why I love it so much. I'm like, this is, parents need this, like the ones that want it, of course. This is great.
I love that you found your niche. Did you
Yeah.
do a dive at all into like a deep dive into human design? Did you try to kind of like bridge the gap between your depth of astrology and try to get that with human design, or were you just happy sort of like going, this is enough for me?
I was happy going with this is enough. I mean, I have seen like my human design, and I understood the part of the fighter from what it said from my chart. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, like knowing what to fight for. And I was like, that's huge for me, because I'm always feeling like everything has to be like all in, and I felt like there's times where I shouldn't, maybe this is not something worth, going all in for. And that has been helpful to me. But then I also, I had a little quick mini reading on TikTok with human design, and she just threw out everything so fast. But I was like, oh my God, yes. She's like, yeah, like you feel like you have to, and you feel like you have to get it done, but then you feel like you don't have that, you don't know enough. So you feel like inadequacy because you don't know enough. And I'm like, that is literally how I feel all the time. There's like this fear sometimes, even when I'm getting a reading, and I'm like, do I know enough? Like, oh my God, I feel like I have to write a million notes, because what if I don't remember? What if I don't know enough? And there comes that fear of inadequacy, like I don't know enough.
That
And
sounds
she's
like
like,
gate 48 right there. Is that gate 48? I'll have to
probably.
have a look. It probably is. I have that gate.
Yeah.
I know exactly. Anyone I speak to, people always say to me, what's your favorite gate? And I'm like, gate 48, because that's that one. It just goes.
Yeah. And she's like, yeah, and you feel like you're gonna die if you don't do it. And she's like, you need to rest and trust your gut and your intuition, and listen to that, and know that, you're always gonna feel like you don't know enough, but you do. And you
Yeah.
have that inner wisdom, and you have to trust that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, thank you. Like, that is literally how I feel. I've never felt so red before.
Yeah.
But she did it so fast. So I recorded it though. I screen recorded it because I was like, I know I need to go back and look at it again.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be really good, because that's the thing with human design, or even astrology as well. When everyone gets a reading, it's like you read it or you listen to it, and then you take only a little bit in, and you need to go back and you need to then take a different bit in. It's just like constantly, it's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? I still go back to my first ever human design, even my astrology reading that I had done like in my natal chart done 10 years ago. Sometimes I go back and go, she was so on point. She was just learning, but she was so on point.
Right.
Talk to me also about this beautiful, beautiful artistry stuff that you do with the Blackcat. Is it
Parlor.
parlour or parlour?
It's
It's
the Blackcat Parlor.
yeah.
Um,
I learned French in school, so every now and then I always go parlour.
oh yeah, probably. Like, that sounds good too. Yeah, I did that. That one came up because I was at home with my children, and at that time I had bad energy, and I
Yeah.
was like, I need to make money here because I can't just sit around. And I was buying these candles because I was spell casting. I love using fire in magic. So I was like, man, this is coming out pretty pricey. Like, I'm having to buy these candles, and I love them. And I was like, but I mean, what if I can make them myself? I'm always a do it myself type person. I've always been that way. So I was like, oh, I bet I can do this. Like, and at first it was for me. I was like, I'm just gonna make them so that I have them and I don't have to buy them. But then I was like, oh wow, like look at how nice this looks. And I showed a friend and she was like, you got to put that up because that looks great. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, I was like, why not? And I was like, oh, I can make it into a new Etsy shop. Like, I can change my name. Because at first I was doing crystal necklaces and I was wire wrapping. But it was kind of like, I did it, I like it, but I'm ready for something different. So I delved into the candles, and as soon as I saw that they came out great, I posted them and I changed the name. I love black cats. So I was like, oh, Blackcat Parlor. I wanted to add something of a shop with black cats. So yeah, it shot off. Like once I uploaded some pictures of a couple of them, people were like, "Do you have this candle? And do you have this?" I was like, "No, but I can get it." And I would get the molds of them, and I would just start.
Oh,
It just I didn't expect it to go that well, but it really did, like, boom really fast. And I was just like, okay, great. This is a way for me to work from home. I still have my babies, but I can still bring in something, that Capricorn. And I'm a double Aries, so Aries moon and rising. So I have this cardinal energy of like, I can't just like sit here and not make anything. Like, I want to help my husband in some way, even if it's a small,
yeah.
small little something, but it's something. And I like being able to bring something.
It's a
So that,
beautiful gift when you can work with your hands and be creative. And I think that's
right.
something that we we all need in our lives where we can get very heady. And you would probably find when you're doing this that you are out of your head and you're in the present moment, which is a healing gift for
Oh
yourself.
yes. Yes, I do. And even when I started doing bulk for one client, and I would listen to, like, that's when I started diving into learning astrology, as I was starting downloading audiobooks. And when I was doing candles, I would listen because I'm a what is it called? Not visual learner, but I'm an audio
Clairaudient.
learner.
Clairaudient.
Yeah. So I was like, oh yeah, like it was always like feeling in when I was making candles. So I was in such a flow. I'm listening and I'm making, creating, and that was a good space.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you have any wisdom that you'd like to share with your fellow brothers and sisters on this lunar journey, or even the Capricorn double Aries? Do you have anything that you'd like to share?
I feel like it's important to be yourself. And I felt like I tried so hard to be what everybody else wanted me to be. And I only felt finally like free when I was able to be who I am. And as a reflector, I think that's also important because at least from my experience, I always wanted to just please and, let me be this way so you like me, and kind of try to morph myself into somebody else. And what I've learned works best for me is just to be myself. So I'd say for other people, it's always best to be yourself. And if you feel like you have to morph yourself or change yourself in any way just to feel like you're accepted, like you're wanted, feeling wanted is good. It feels good, but it's not what's important is that you like yourself and that you love yourself. And that's what I've learned so much in this journey is I need to love me. And this whole time I was looking for who's going to love me. And thanks to medicine, it was you're going to love you. And I think that's where the most healing has come from for me, is seeing it as, how can I love me? And if you don't accept me for me, and if I feel like I have to change myself for you, then it's okay if we're not, going to be compatible, or if we're not going to be friends. And that's been so relieving for me, because that's a cycle I was in for so long. Is, are you going to like me for me? And I have to like me for me first before anybody else can.
So well said. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I received that. How can people find your shop? How can people work with you, with your beautiful astrology work and just your gorgeous energy? Like just feels beautiful to be in your space. So thank you. How can people work with this? How can people experience this?
Yes. I do plan on venturing out, especially once my son starts school. I'll have a lot more time to do some projects where I'll be a lot more in social media. But I do have an Etsy shop, which is the Blackcat Parlour. That's where my candles are still up. And, they're there where if anybody likes candle magic. And then my Matriarch Astrology is my website. So it's www.matriarchastrology.com. And the same goes for Instagram and Twitter. I mean, not Twitter, I'm sorry, TikTok. So it's Matriarch Astrology on Instagram and on TikTok. And in the future, later this year, it will be in YouTube, Matriarch Astrology on YouTube, where I will be posting a lot of videos about not only the parenting side, but also just for adults as well. So we can have a variety.
Oh, what a beautiful gift you are to the world. Thank you. Thank you so much for just sitting in space with me. Thank you for sharing all that you've shared. I could just keep talking, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful being seen and being able to speak and share with you.
Yeah, you're welcome.